public hearing.
Just as a matter for the board, and Philip too, I think one of the people during public testimony brought up the idea of the legal definition under the resolutions of substantial need. That's a legitimate question. The answer is that the statute provides no definition of substantial need. The Department of Revenue, I'll give anybody the name and phone number of the director of the Property Tax Division, because we've had these conversations as assessors on a number of situations of how do our taxing districts meet the legal requirement of quote unquote substantial need in the terminology, and there is none. In fact, what the department will tell you is that it would be enough for a taxing district to simply say that to protect their future levy capacity would qualify, because there is no definition of substantial need. In our resolutions, I think you will find that in each one of those, that Philip does articulate some specific substantial need. Not everybody does that. There is no definition of substantial need, but we've tried to articulate it versus just saying we have a substantial need and nothing else. So I think that was Philip's intent here, is to go into more detail on what those substantial needs are. But that's a good question. That was a legitimately good question.
Yeah, I think also comments made, yes, we are taking from the road infrastructure, but we're funding the rest of our infrastructure. We provide, you can look at all of county government as
sure.
Infrastructure. We're providing, you know.
And actually, the initial recommendation for that, Commissioner Sullivan, the initial recommendation for that came from Frank Gifford, knowing the full ramifications. It didn't come from me or one of the other elected officials. It came from the road department. And I think everybody recognizes that we don't recommend that you do this in an ongoing fashion, the levy shift. Especially should the rural secure roads funding from the feds dry up in the future. I think you may find road in the future not being able to survive, not only with the levy shift, but you could find yourself in the quandary of no longer being able to do diversion. So you might find yourself more to afford to do diversion. You may find yourself more than a $216,000 pickle, and you may find yourself in almost $1 million pickle in the future. But that, that's a bridge that we're going to have to eventually cross. That's true.
You know, the fact that Frank himself brought forward the concept of doing that is an indication of how collaborative this effort was.
Well, I think Frank, I can't speak for Frank either, Phil, but right. I think what Frank would say even in public comment is that that was the way for roads to also participate in a reduction in their budget, in their expenditure scenario, as the rest of us were cutting staff and reducing ours as well. That he felt that one, they could do it for a couple of years, and two, that it was a way for them to participate.
And roads has, we always have more projects out there that we've identified than we have funding to do, and sometimes we have things like the stimulus dollars that came in, and because roads was ready, we were able to take advantage of that and do some of that this past year, create some jobs doing that in this county, because those projects were shovel ready. Whereas other projects, a lot of infrastructure projects take too much time, more time than was allowed to get shovel ready. So, it is one of those things where we do anticipate that there will be that gap between funded and unfunded. And we do know that there's uncertainties from not just the state, but the federal government in that way. I mean, we can get things some years and not get them in others in all different parts of our budget. So this is an ongoing management issue.
Yep.
Yeah, it really does speak to the collaborative effort of people. I really felt like Frank, not just Frank, everybody really looked at everybody else's part of the budget and know that that's part of infrastructure too, that law and justice was part of infrastructure. That you don't have economic development without courts to decide the civil disputes. You don't have it without safety. You don't have it without public health. And looking at public parks, that those are important. And everybody knows that everybody in this system could do more if they had more resources. I mean, right now, you could go to any one of our department heads or elected officials and say, if I gave you more, what could you do? And they would have answers. They would know that they could provide more service for the citizens if they had more resources. But this is a balancing act with everybody. You know, I really appreciate it, you know, looking at the importance of all the different things county government does and trying to find a recommendation that balances those. We still haven't heard from the public for the budget next week, but I'm really impressed with the job done so far in looking not just at this year, but next year and the year after. In this process, we're doing more potentially this year so that it will cushion that in the coming years. And I guess it's a very responsible thing to do, and we've shown some restraint in the past years that have helped too.